music, I always start by writing in the markings. Usually I have another harpist's markings. I'll just write in all the markings from another harpist's score. If I don't have another harpist's score, then I'll just kind of play through it really slow and mark as I go. But I don't continue on with the learning process like officially until I have the entire score pretty much marked. And that includes measuring my numbers, my pedals, dynamics, fingering, and so on. Just like whatever markings I would need. In my head, when I'm learning a piece, I separate it into like 3 main parts. So the first part is kind of the more technical side of learning the piece, and then I add in the musical side of learning the piece, and then I have the finishing polishing side of learning the piece. So I separate it into 3. I'm very picky when it comes to detail, and so whenever I learn a new piece of music, I cannot handle playing it wrong. I feel like when I was younger, I would just play super fast and get really frustrated that I would never get the notes or the fingers right. So over time, I learned to just be patient, and I learned to just play it slow. So now I have built a habit where I always play extremely under tempo. I always use a metronome, and I have it set to such a slow tempo that whenever I'm sight reading or just like reading the music, I cannot make a mistake. It is so slow. And this part's kind of painful, but it works really well. It helps me make sure that I, 1, have all the notes correct, 2, all the rhythms are correct, and 3, it really helps me focus on my fingering and technique. I'll just kind of break it up to what is workable for my brain, because I get really tired and exhausted and my brain doesn't work as well when I practice for too long, and so I make sure that the amount that I work on each day is very doable. And so after I work on each section of the piece extremely slow, I start to kind of speed it up. So usually on the first day of learning a new piece, I'll take the first section I'm working on and play that extremely slow. And then on the second day, I'll take it a little faster and faster. And I'll just slowly increase the speed of that metronome on the second day. And on the third day, I'll kind of just go back and fix any mistakes I might have. And by the third day, I'll start working on the next section and repeat that process for the next section. So I just have this like ongoing like cycle. And I think the key for me to making this step very effective and worth my time is I make sure that the notes are accurate, the rhythm is accurate, and my fingering and technique is really good when I'm slow. So that way when I speed it up, I still keep that foundation. It really helps add to the control I have. So after I take it slow and slowly speed it up and speed it up and speed it up, I end up pretty much having the tempo and like the rhythm and the notes down in my fingers, and I have a better idea of how the piece is going to look in my brain, and I'll start just practicing the musicality. And again, I work in sections by section, and so I'll take an idea and I'll just like kind of figure out how I like to shape it, and I feel like this step takes the longest out of the entire learning process for me. When I practice this, my main tips are focusing on the tone quality, a lot of repetition, a lot of listening. I like to listen to harpists a lot at this point. I listen to myself a lot. I like to record myself when I play, and I'll go back and listen, and as I listen to myself, I'm like, I like that, I didn't like that. I can go back and fix it. It's at this point where I like to start memorizing the music too. I'll maybe memorize a page a day or a section a day. At this point, I also start to focus more on my buzzing or my pedal noise or just like the small details. So after I finish that whole putting it all together, I am now in the final stage, which is the perfecting stage. And it's at this stage where I like to perform it a lot for close friends. It's nothing professional, just like, hey, can you like come to my practice room for like 10 minutes and I'll just play something for you. I just like to keep practice performing, and I record myself each time I practice performing it. Like I'll make a note, a quite literal note. I have a notepad, and I will note down everything I want to work on, and then the next day I'll practice that, fix it, drill it, and then I'll practice perform it again. And the idea of writing down your mistakes and then going back and fixing it when you practice and then performing again, you catch your small mistakes early on, and then hopefully when you practice, you're so focused on fixing that one mistake to the point that you never make that mistake again. And the polishing stage can last however long it needs. Usually I have a deadline for when I have to have a piece polished and ready to perform, and so I'll just keep doing that until pretty much I have to perform it. And I feel like I never am done with the polishing stage. I think that's kind of fun. As I polish, I can have new interpretations, new ideas, new stories stories behind the music. So that is a rough overview of how I like to learn pieces. And now I'm just gonna throw out some random tips that I have. I always make sure to practice with my harp in tune. For some reason, it's really hard for me to learn music when the harp is out of tune. So the harp's in tune, it helps my ear get used to what kind of note I'm supposed to hear. So whenever I am later trying to memorize, easier for my ear to catch a mistake because I know what it's supposed to sound like. And if the harp's out of tune, it makes it harder for me to catch mistakes. I will usually limit myself to 1 hour per piece when I practice. I don't like to spend like 4 hours straight on one piece because that can kind of make me tired and sick of it and my brain just kind of turns off. I also really like to look into the history of the composer and the piece in general. Knowing the story behind the music can really help you when you're adding the musical aspect. This might be my opinion, but I think contemporary music is kind of hard to play sometimes. I struggle to fall in love with the pieces. I feel like the romantic pieces, it's so easy for me to love. Contemporary ones are a little harder for me. But learning the background of the music or about the composer can really help you to fall in love with the music. Make sure that I love what I'm playing, because if I don't love what I'm playing, it really shows through. It also can make the learning process slower. I feel like the more I love a piece, the quicker I will learn it and the more fun I'll have learning it. I always like to make sure I enjoy the learning process of something. The senses are very active when you're learning. You have the touch because your fingers are touching the strings, your feet are touching the pedals, your eyes are activated, the sight because you're looking at the strings, you're looking at the music, ears are activated because you're hearing what you're sounding like, and to add another sense, you want to also have your voice. Saying your pedals, or if there's a specific melodic line that you just can't remember, saying and singing the notes as you play, singing the melody as you play to help you bring out that melody can really help. Sometimes I'll just count the rhythm out loud because I just can't do it. Speaking as you practice can really help a lot. So those are all the tips I have right now. I probably have more, but I can't think of them in the moment. If anyone has any tips that they like to do whenever they're learning a piece, please leave them in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.